Tonight on Steelers Talk, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about here on the show. First up, more coaching staff news for the Pittsburgh Steelers as head coach Mike McCarthy continues to fill out his staff. Then we'll get into Nick Herbig. Does he want out of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and should the Steelers trade him if he wants out? Then we'll get into Patrick Queen. Is he getting cut? Something that might be happening here. We'll be breaking that down later in the show. And then make sure you guys stick around here because we have a sneaky good wide receiver signing to a futures contract that you guys need to know about. But before we get into the content here today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button because we're going to have some great offseason coverage for you guys, as this is going to be, a huge offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, with a new coaching regime coming in, there's going to be some changes made. We're going to have the latest news, rumors, and reports on the Pittsburgh Steelers every single day, just like we're doing on today's show, but also NFL free agency coverage, NFL draft content. It's all going to be, up on the channel this year. We're going to be having 2 videos come out every single day for free. Right now, we are getting really close to 115,000 subscribers here on the channel, so I'd greatly appreciate it if you join our family, if you love Steelers football and you guys want daily content. So the first thing that I want to talk about here today is we have our next offensive line coach, James Campen, the longtime O-line coach under Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. He has not been coaching in the league the last 2 years. His last stop was in Carolina in 2023 on Frank Reich's staff. But he is making his return to the NFL to work with McCarthy here in Pittsburgh. And, Campen's been a top O-line coach for a long time in the National Football League, man. He's a very well-respected guy. They had a lot of really great offensive linemen go through Green Bay during his time there. But, something that's really interesting about this hire in particular, guys, is that he and Aaron Rodgers are very, very close. Rodgers, lists Campen among the people, in football that he is the closest to. He says he's got a great heart. If you remember back during his Jets Hard Knocks days, he had that famous clip of him going up to him when he was still coaching for the Panthers and calling him too fat and, making fun of him for eating Pop-Tarts and the stuff that friends do, right? So, he's really close with Campen, and obviously he's mended his relationship with Mike McCarthy after, their marriage in Green Bay ended on not the greatest terms, and, he's bringing in a lot of people that Rodgers is really close with. So, with Rodgers at the end of his journey here in the National Football League, it's all about, saying goodbye to the game. It's about, connecting with people that, he wants to connect with. And I'm sure he'd love one more season with his old buddy Campen here in Pittsburgh. And I just think that with more of these hires, and we'll talk about another one with a connection to Rodgers here in just a second, I think Aaron Rodgers' return gets more likely by the day. There's now reports starting to come out, some whispers that Aaron Rodgers is almost certainly going to be coming back for the 2026 season to play for Mike McCarthy here in the Steel City in 2026. We actually did a video on the channel this week, guys, why I actually don't think that is a nightmare scenario like a lot of people might think. I think that it might be actually the best short-term strategy for the Pittsburgh Steelers to have Aaron Rodgers come back for one last run here with Mike McCarthy, James Campen, and others. So if you want to check out that video, I'll put the chip to that one in the top right of today's show. But another coach here that the Steelers will be interviewing for another big position on this coaching staff, offensive coordinator, is Scott Tolzien, the quarterbacks coach for the New Orleans Saints. Now, Tolzien is really young still, 38 years old. He's seen as kind of an up-and-coming offensive mind as well. And, Saints fans do not want to lose this guy because he worked with Tyler Shuck very closely this year. He was the QB coach under Kellen Moore, obviously, this year in New Orleans, but he was also the QB coach under McCarthy for multiple years with the Dallas Cowboys. So his connection to McCarthy is pretty clear. And Tolzien was also a backup quarterback to Aaron Rodgers in Mike McCarthy's offense in Green Bay for many seasons. He actually started a few games that actually played pretty well. So he's got that connection as well, a former quarterback. And he also helped Tyler Shuck there with the New Orleans Saints, make that nice transition to being an NFL quarterback this year. With a guy like Shuck, who was already, 25 this year, he had to be good immediately if he was going to lock in and become the next franchise quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. And he helped him accomplish that. And Shuck, I would say looked the best out of any quarterback, any rookie quarterback from this class. And that includes Cam Ward and Jackson Dart, who also showed promise this year. So Shuck, I believe he's going to be the runner-up for the Offensive Rookie of the Year this year. And, part of that development, I think, can be attributed to Tolzien's coaching and his fundamental work with the young QB. But, he's another guy with that Rodgers connection, right? These guys were in the same quarterback room for multiple years, backed up Rodgers for many years, and I kind of like that Tolzien, has a history of working with a young quarterback and just had, an experience with a young quarterback, developing him, and also a former quarterback that has a connection with Rodgers, has an established relationship with Rodgers as well. And I know it's kind of becoming like the who's worked with Aaron Rodgers before, and then let's hire him. But Tolzien is a legitimate offensive mind as well, and he's seen as a potential future head coach in this league. So to bring him in, even though he wouldn't be calling plays, Mike is going to be calling the plays here. I think that when it comes to Will Howard, when it comes to any quarterback they draft this year, having guys in there, Mike McCarthy, Tolzien, and Tom Arth at the quarterbacks coach position that are all known for their quarterback. Two of them are former quarterbacks, and all of them are known for their quarterback development skills. I think that's a really good way to set the foundation for any young QB that's going to be developing here in Pittsburgh. Now, some other coaching news here is that the Steelers have hired former Commanders pass game coordinator Jason Simmons for likely a similar role under new defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. Simmons worked for many years under McCarthy in Green Bay, and he actually interviewed for the defensive coordinator position, and obviously he was impressive enough for the Steelers to bring him in. Even though he's not going to be the DC, he's likely to be the pass game coordinator, maybe work with the DBs a little bit, maybe safeties. We'll see on that. But they also hired a Cowboys assistant O-line coach. I hope I'm saying this right, Ramon Chin-Young. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm probably butchering that, but if I am, I apologize to Coach Ramon. But he's going to be the running backs coach here in Pittsburgh, replacing Eddie Faulkner. And then they're also going to be interviewing Saints assistant offensive line coach Jari Evans, who's a former guard in this league, a really good one, by the way, for the Saints, and he would be doing the same role under James Campen as the offensive line coach. And I'm guessing, he would take over for Campen when and if he decides to retire down the road, because Campen has certainly had his years in the National Football League. He would probably be a short-term solution at the O-line coach position. Evans could be the long-term answer at that spot. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who would you like the Pittsburgh Steelers to hire as their next OC? It sounds like Shieldhouse is going to be sticking in L.A., and it sounds like Mike LaFleur might be getting the head coaching job in Arizona. So I don't think Shieldhouse is going to be coming here, guys. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Who would you like to be the next OC of the Pittsburgh Steelers? My first choice right now, I think, would be Scott Tolzien. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today. Well, I tell you about our sponsor today. Let me know who you want to be the next OC of the Black and Gold. And speaking of Black and Gold, you guys can rep it right now, and you guys can go to chatsports.com/pitrope. That link is down there in the comments and description of today's show. And when you guys click that link and make a purchase for one of these Pittsburgh Steelers rope hats, helps out the channel, and that money goes towards new graphic software and all the super chat items that we give away during the season, and our cameras and our monitors and all the stuff that we have to pay for to keep this operation afloat here on Steelers Talk. So help out a small business today by getting one of our hats here. Go to chatsports.com/pitrope to make a purchase today. Now we shift our focus here to fan favorite Nick Herbig, where former Steeler and former teammate of Herbig, Braden Fahoku, says that he has talked with Nick Herbig, and he says that Nick is done not being a full-time starter with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he says that he is not going to accept being on a pitch count like he has been here in Pittsburgh over the last several seasons. This is what Fahoku had to put out on his X account this week. He says, just talked with Nick Herbig. He doesn't care about the trade smoke. He's ready to just be viewed and treated as a full-time starter, whether it's in Pittsburgh or elsewhere. Pittsburgh needs to decide what they want to do with that edge room. Nick Herbig is a starter, no more pitch counts. So it certainly seems like Nick wants it to be known that he is not going to just play third fiddle anymore and be okay taking like 15 snaps like he did in some games this year. And I think something does have to give in this team's outside linebacker room. There's just too much talent within these guys and in this position group that can only have two full-time starters. And I don't blame any of these guys for wanting to get, full-blown starting reps, and that includes Nick Herbig, who was really, really productive this year. And for me, guys, if I have to trade one of these gentlemen, and I don't want to trade any of them necessarily, but if I have to, I would be picking TJ Watt, all right? And I'll break down some of those reasons here in just a second, but we actually have a full video of why I think the Pittsburgh Steelers should consider trading TJ Watt this offseason. He's one of my favorite players of all time in Steelers history, but I think, you have to understand when it's time to move on, and I think now might be the right time to move on from TJ Watt. I'll put the chip to that one in the top right if you want to check it out, but the short version of it is I think losing Herbig to keep Watt would be really disappointing, okay? And if I have to trade one of these three gentlemen, I'm going to go with the guy that's the oldest, the guy that is the least productive, and the one that is the most expensive. So we can just take a look at the pressure numbers this year. I mean, Alex Highsmith was an absolute beast with a 14.5% pressure rate and a 6.7 quick pressure rate. That is an insane number right there. Herbig was also really good with over 13% pressure rate and over 5% quick pressure rate. And then you get to TJ Watt, and it's just like a 10% pressure rate and, just about a 3% quick pressure rate. So Herbig and Highsmith, in terms of just being pure pass rushers, were more effective at getting pressure on the quarterback than TJ Watt was this year, despite the fact that next year's cap hit, we are slated to pay TJ $42 million at age 31 after he just regressed last season. Now, Watt's still a really good player, but if you're going to be paying somebody $42 million per season against the cap, that is quarterback level cap hits right there, guys. He's got to bring quarterback level value, and he just doesn't do that anymore. You got to be a Myles Garrett. You got to be, a Micah Parsons. You've got to be one of these truly elite defensive player of the year type of impacts at the edge rusher position. And as much as I like TJ Watt and still think he's a good player, I don't think he's that good anymore, And you got Alex Highsmith, who's still just 28, and his cap hit's not that high. And then if you get Nick Herbig done on an extension this year, I think he would be somewhere in the 20s, maybe even the low 30s, depending on, what the market says about him. But even then, you would pretty much almost be paying less to pay Highsmith and Herbig than you would be just with Watt himself. I mean, if you pay Nick Herbig a big contract this offseason, you're still paying Watt, you're still paying Highsmith, you're going to be paying almost at least $80 million, up to $85, $90 million against the cap for one room. It's something's got to give here, guys, and I think it's the guy that has the $42 million cap hit. That's just me. But, another thing that you could consider is, we are bringing in Patrick Graham as our defensive coordinator, and he is known for tailoring his scheme to his players. Could Graham get creative and get three guys on the defense and use them all at the same time? Could we see a 3 outside linebacker defense here in Pittsburgh? And, I think essentially the way that would work is that you've got Watt and Highsmith on the edges, and then you've got the smaller Herbig essentially playing as a hybrid linebacker inside, in between those two tackles. Something like a Frankie Louvu, for example, somebody that blitzes a lot for the Washington Commanders. Nick Herbig might be really good in that role. I mean, I think Herbig is awesome as just a straight edge, but if they want to keep Herbig, could he, fill that role of that hybrid, blitz linebacker that a lot of these teams use? It's certainly a possibility, especially because Herbig does have the size to potentially play at off-ball linebacker. But I think it's an interesting discussion, guys. But if you had to trade one of these three gentlemen, and by the way, I'm not saying you have to like it, and I don't like it. I don't want to trade these guys. They're all really good players. But, it seems like with Herbig, he's kind of done, being a rotational piece, and I don't blame him. So if you had to trade one of these guys, which one are you picking? Type TJ for TJ Watt, AH for Alex Highsmith, or NH for Nick Herbig. And now, speaking of guys that might be leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, Patrick Queen, there's a lot of smoke out there that he's going to get cut by the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Ray Fittipaldo says that he expects the Steelers to cut Patrick Queen this offseason. And then James Harrison on his podcast, which if you don't watch it, it is pretty entertaining. He hinted that the Steelers may have already let PQ know that they're going to cut him. I think he said, they already cut PQ or something like that. And I'm sure he's in communication with some Steelers players in that locker room. And maybe PQ, is being told, hey, we're going to release you, but keep it quiet here until we actually do it. Maybe that's what's going on, or maybe Harrison was just mistaken. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Steelers end up cutting Patrick Queen, because just plain simply, he hasn't been productive in this defense for somebody that's making as much money as he's making. He had the 8th worst missed tackle rate in football last year, with over a 20% missed tackle rate from an off-ball linebacker. He was consistently in the wrong run fit. He would be targeted in zone coverage. All these different things. And you guys, and that's not like PFF grading is like gospel or anything, guys. But for somebody that's getting paid as much as Patrick Queen is getting paid, I think you can agree that that PFF grading just wasn't up to snuff. And if you can save $13 and a third $1 million here to cut Queenie this year. I mean, it makes sense from a financial standpoint. He's not a player that's necessarily worth the money that he's making, and it's going to be like a $17 million cap hit if you keep him this year. So would not surprise me at all if they end up cutting him. But on the other hand, I also understand, some of the reasons for people wanting to keep Patrick Queen, because he was an all-pro when he was with a good defensive coordinator in Baltimore under Mike Macdonald. And, he's been stuck in this Steelers system with Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin. As we know, they can put their linebackers in some tough spots and, put some really tough ass on their linebackers. And, with Patrick Graham coming in, is it possible that he could be more of an asset and more of closer to the all-pro version of Patrick Queen with this new defensive coordinator? Because listen, man, if you let him go, Peyton Wilson, as talented as he is, he pretty much got benched this year, guys. Malik Harrison pretty much took over, and he started playing more than Wilson at the end of the season. And, I think Wilson is a pretty good pass defender. He's got really good athleticism, but he still needs to get bigger, and he needs to be smarter as a run defender if he wants to be a full-time player in this league. And Holcomb is hitting free agency. So if you lose Patrick Queen, maybe you can replace him with Nick Herbig. Like maybe that's a possibility that you can think about doing, and then pairing Herbig up with Wilson and Harrison next year and seeing how that plays out. There's some interesting ideas. Or it's a really good linebacker free agency class. You could replace Queen with a linebacker in free agency. All of those are interesting possibilities. But, I think whatever the team decides to do here, I think I can get behind, because I know Patrick Queen in a good defense can be a really good player, really athletic, all that different stuff. He might just have to play a specific type of role in order for him to be successful that he wasn't playing here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So make the call for me down there in the comment section. Should the Steelers keep or cut Patrick Queen this offseason? Type K for keep or C for cut. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And we'll finish today's slate of news and rumors for the Pittsburgh Steelers by talking about a futures contract that the Steelers signed today with wide receiver A.T. Perry. Now, you might be saying, Jack, this is a futures contract. Why are we talking about this? Well, I think A.T. Perry is about as good of a futures contract as you could get. He was on the practice squad for the Denver Broncos this year, but Perry is only 27. He's not that old. He was drafted in 2023 in the 6th round by the Saints. He was a Senior Bowl monster back in the day coming out of Wake Forest. 6'5", 205. But, he's got a very enticing combination of, pairing that size over, 6'5", 205, big body guy, but also he's got quick feet and really good route running technique, and he can create separation versus man coverage. Now, he's only actually played in a regular season game in 1 year, okay? He's been a practice squad guy the last 2 seasons, but back in his rookie season in 2023, he averaged over 20 yards a reception and had 4 touchdowns on just 12 catches. I mean, that is just insane efficiency from A.T. Perry. I think part of the reason why he's been a practice squad guy as of late, guys, is he does have some off-field concerns. Apparently, there's some of that, behavior, personality type of stuff that we dealt with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. And you might be saying, why are we bringing a guy like that into our locker room? Well, plain and simply, man, like this wide receiver room needs to get a lot better. And if Perry, can behave himself here and he shows out in training camp, like this is somebody that I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on as we approach the season, because, that size and route running combination, you don't see it very often. He's a very talented player. And, listen, if he misbehaves, if he F's up, like you can just get rid of him, right? So it's just a lottery ticket. It's a futures contract. You're not paying him anything. So I like the lottery ticket purchase here from Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy. This is a position that needs to get a lot better in 2026, and they're already starting the process of that, which I'm a fan of. So type Real One down there in the comment section if you made it to the end of today's show. Really do appreciate you guys sticking with me here on these videos every single day, and I want to give you some love to you down there in the comment section if you're making it to the end of these videos. But that'll be it for today's loaded edition of Steelers News and Rumors here on Steelers Talk. We'll have another slate of Steelers videos for you guys tomorrow, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till tomorrow, guys. Here we go, Steelers.